All right, good morning. Can you guys hear me now? I think you should be able to hear me. Let's do a refresh here. Refresh. All right, let me check it on the computer. Yes, Trisha can hear me. Thank you, Trisha. Sorry, I forgot to plug in the mic, folks. So please forgive me for that. Let us make sure. Okay, so yes, a few of you can hear me, so I think everybody else just needs to refresh their audio. So good morning, K-Man. I was saying that I need like a dedicated area because right now I'm using a combination of, home office and, doing my podcasts and stuff from here as well. So I've got my eyes set on another room in the house. I'm just trying to convince hubby that I can have that room because he's always like, I don't know. And I'm like, yeah, CMR needs more space. Good morning to you guys. Of course, this Sahara dust thing is crazy. We're going to have an opportunity to talk about some of that. I did feel, even from yesterday, like a change in my sinuses. And I don't know if it's directly related to the Sahara dust because I don't even think it takes Sahara dust for me to feel a difference. It's really just a matter of like different things in the atmosphere or the environment. We're going to talk about hand sanitizers and the dangers of those. You guys know from day one, I'm not a fan of hand sanitizers. And I have always said that they're actually very dangerous depending on what they have in them. And of course, a lot of people, when you're going into every single store now and they're spraying you down, they're probably going to be using the cheapest hand sanitizers available. So I think what people need to start considering is maybe walking with your own hand sanitizers, and when they offer you some at the door, you just take yours out and say, hey, I got my natural hand sanitizers that are not going to kill me before COVID-19 does. So listen, guys, yesterday we had an amazing show. I know a lot of you tuned in to hear what was going on with Fidelity. In typical fashion, we have heard nothing from them at all. So we don't know, what is going on. I reckon that they honestly do not care. And it's a very sad indictment. That they just don't care. They've said they're going to be late. They're going to be late. It is what it is. You people just have to wait on your money. This attitude of you people is directly from the CEO of that organization, who's like, his staff are living paycheck to paycheck. I think he said that to let us know that so are the rest of us, which I think is very insulting. Of course, we're living paycheck to paycheck because we live in the most expensive country in the world that has, some straight up legit reasons why most people would be living paycheck to paycheck. And the other thing that I think is amazing and interesting is that the world over, most people are living paycheck to paycheck. In fact, most people are living in such enormous debt in the United States and UK and all over the world. They're not even living paycheck to paycheck. They're living like loan to loan, credit card to credit card. I was sharing with you guys last week that I'm a reality show person a little bit. There's some reality shows I do indulge in. And one of those is on Bravo, and it's called this show called Vanderpump Rules. And so last night I was watching a podcast on YouTube about how the like what's the net worth of these young hippie, not really hippie, but younger folks are. They're like in their 30s. And they were talking about how now, since they've become these reality show celebrities, they get paid like $10,000 an episode to do the show. And obviously, some of them are in a lot of episodes, right? So that's good money. Like half of them are now millionaires, half of them are now worth $500,000, which is, fantastic. But before that, one of the young ladies was saying that she actually used to pay her boyfriend's rent with her credit card. Like she would have to pay the rent on the credit card and then take her time paying the credit card off. And I'm thinking, wow, that's crazy to think that people have to pay rent with a credit card. Normally you think of a credit card as like purchases that you kind of want to make, vacations, more luxury style items, but not to keep a roof over your head. And this is the reality of a lot of people over the world. We talked about this, over a month ago, how people, not just in the Cayman Islands, are finding it difficult to live on what the minimum wage is or the working wage, whatever. But there are people elsewhere in the world who have to have 2-3 jobs and co-sharing and doing all sorts of creative things in order to just afford to have a roof over their heads. And here we have Mr. Brent Hill from Fidelity, who obviously doesn't have those concerns, who I'm sure lives in a multi-million-dollar house. He talks about his $500,000 pension money. Sorry. He's still probably relatively young, making a decent salary. These guys, some of them make $15,000, $25,000 a month. Listen, back in the day, when I started working at Maples and Calder, and this is back in the late 1990s, the average partner was like making, well, not the average partner, but a partner was making like 25 grand a month. Plus they get bonuses, profit sharing, drawdowns and whatever. So these people are legit millionaires. And I have nothing against people earning their coins and doing what they have to do. They work extremely hard. Some of them look like they're working almost 24/7 to keep up with the Joneses, quite literally, and living this type of lifestyle. And more kudos to them. But if you want to live that lifestyle, that's on you. If you've had opportunities, a lot of times because of where you're from and the color of your skin, you are given more opportunities than people who live and who were born right here in the Cayman Islands. So don't look down on those people just because you have been afforded these opportunities to have all of this financial freedom and wealth. That doesn't give you the right to talk about the fact that people do live paycheck to paycheck. Yes, they do. That's a reality of life here in the Cayman Islands. And some of that, in all honesty, is of our own making. I totally understand that. But that isn't everyone. And there are people who legitimately are living in poverty in this country because they cannot help themselves and they cannot do any better. And that is why I always, always stress, as someone who grew up in poverty, I consider myself, I know poverty is a very sometimes sort of subjective thing that we think about. But in my opinion, I grew up poor. I still consider myself, very much on the fringes of being poor because, one illness will put you in debt like nothing you've ever seen. So I understand the struggles. When I was in university, trying to better myself and trying to get an education, there were days I didn't know where my next meal was coming from. So I still fought hard and I still thought that the best thing that I could do was to educate myself so that people like Mr. Brent Hill can never look down on me. I mean, he may choose to do so, but at the end of the day, I will hold my own. I will have an opinion. I'm entitled to that. And, it's just a sense of disappointment when I hear certain comments coming out of his mouth, the way in which they were as well, because it speaks to this level of arrogance. You've built your fortune on the backbone of the poor and the people in this country. And then you turn around and you look down on them and you say, okay, you want your emergency pension fund during a pandemic, a worldwide pandemic, during a crisis like this. You have to justify to someone why you want it. And you can only get, $5,000. And, like you have to answer to him sort of thing. And I just thought, wow. And then he's going to tell you, well, you're going to be spending your money on luxury items or sending your money overseas. I don't even understand how this man thought that any of these comments were appropriate. And the most amazing thing is the reason why they were in the Legislative Assembly was to talk about these reports that the Public Accounts Committee had been examining. I don't think he touched on the reports at all. And there were concerns about his company's handling of the whole payout, which has been very, very poor. And again, he barely touched on that. So it's sad, but we will continue to highlight these concerns and to address them head on, to address people like him. And, you know, it is what it is, and we just keep it moving. So just a reminder, folks, that yesterday we had over 400 and just trying to remember the test results. It was over 400 test results, and we just pull this up here. And we had 0 positives. So we continue to have very good news on the COVID front. You know, people are being tested, which I think is important. Over the weekend, President Trump made some comment that we should do less testing. Not obviously, thank God he's not running the Cayman Islands, but the Americans should do less testing. And I thought that that was a crazy statement to make. So we had 461 COVID test results that were, I guess, a combination of over the weekend since the last press conference, sorry. And there were no positives out of those. So that is a bit of good news. So yeah, President Trump is of the opinion that they need to stop testing. And I just admitted we have a guest that's trying to join us, and they're having a little bit of issue here. Yep, so they're using a Mac computer. One of the reasons I don't use Mac. So right. So yeah, so his solution is to do less testing, because then that will give you fewer positive results. Well, yeah, but I'm not sure that that's really what you want. Elizabeth, good morning. Demetric says it's being in the wild now, but good morning, CMR, and everyone tuned into the Cold Hard Truth. Demetric, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Let me see who else we've got here. Irvelyn, of course, is here for it. Thank you so much, Irvelyn. Let me just send my guest the show link again, just in case here. Irvelyn, Trisha, Gina, good morning to all of you. Lame, thank you. Irvelyn says, thanks for the wonderful work you're doing, keeping us informed of Cayman happenings. I am stuck on you. Aw, Irvelyn, thank you so much. Big shout out to one of our watchers in all the way to the UK. Cecile called me yesterday, and she just called to say thank you for the wonderful job that you're doing, keeping the people of the Cayman Islands informed. And she just wanted me to know that she's like a super fan and she loves the show. And she's like, don't listen to any naysayers, which you guys know I hardly listen to them. Sometimes they get in my headspace just a little bit, enough for me to drop a few words and then keep it moving, as you guys well know. So yeah, so Cecile, big shout out to her. She said that she just loves the fact that she can be all the way in the UK and, you know, keep track of everything that's happening in the Cayman Islands. So thank you, Cecile, for the call, first of all, and for your wonderful comments. Good morning, Dira. I think that's how that's pronounced. Jennifer is here, Trisha. Hey, Jake, what's up? Good morning, Jake. We have Sarah and Charles. Charles says he can hear me loud and clear. Thank you, Charles. Elizabeth, Aldine, Louis, tuned in from the US. Orville is here, of course. Linda says, not crazy coming from a demented individual. Amanda says she's watching from Turkey. Amanda, we do remember that you're there. Hope you're doing well. She says Fidelity is a bad organization. Not only the pension has issues, insurance claims as well. Believe me, when I get back home, I will be moving all of my business from them. And I think that at the end of the day, a lot of people need to consider the fact that when a corporate entity, I mean, listen, in the US right now, they're going through this whole Black Lives Matter thing, right? And there's been a lot of shaking up and a lot happening as a result of that. And one of the most interesting and fascinating things is that there are companies and organizations who have made light of the situation. Their CEOs have made comments that Black lives don't matter, or things that they think that are funny about nooses and whatever. And right now, the actions of the community and the business world is swift. Remember the CEO of CrossFit, when he made his comments, his derogatory comments about Black Lives Matters? Listen, Reeboks, I don't know the exact companies, but whoever, Nike, whoever, these big name companies said, we are pulling our corporate connections with you, which is money in your pocket. And sometimes that's all these people understand, right? And I think that we have a personal responsibility to not support businesses who are prejudiced, who express certain views. This isn't the olden days when you didn't have a choice. There's lots of wonderful banks out there who will give you good customer service. I'm a fan of Cayman National Bank. That's my personal bank. That's my business bank. And that's the bank that I support. So I'm going to tell you guys to go and check them out and see what they have to offer. I'm pretty sure the CEO of Cayman National Bank would not be, making these types of derogatory comments about their clients or their customers. And so, yes, Amanda, you have the power to decide where you're going to put your business. And I would suggest putting it with people who are respectful at the very least. Amy joining us from New York. Thank you, Amy. Charles says, I wonder if the law will really hold them accountable for breaching the deadline date despite the excuses and blah, blah, blah. Because I got my approval from BritK form submitted on May the 6th, and until now, nothing from them. And the thing is, the figure expecting is very small. Charles, this is a very good question. I think that at the end of the day, that they need to be held accountable. What's the purpose of having a law that says you've got 7 days to do this, you've got 14 days to do this? I mean, the law is crystal clear, and you've got 45 days to do this, and then you do none of that. You're gonna be late with your payouts. You've not sent out any confirmation of receipt notices, any approval notices, none of that, and you face absolutely no penalties. I mean, I don't even know why have the law in place. Let me just see. Yeah. So at the end of the day, it is unfortunate. I'm waiting to hear whether or not government will actually do something. And this is where, once again, we have departments, we have elected officials that we put in place. They put these laws in place and they allow corporate entities to break the laws without any repercussions at all. Individuals, they'll haul you behind in court in a heartbeat. They'll drag you through a trial, drag you through the court system. And especially I think if you're Cayman and you get dragged a little bit extra, because we see other people, I guess it just depends on who you are, being permitted to steal all sorts of money, sometimes from even the Cayman's government, and they walk away with no charges being laid, or they walk away with a slap on the wrist. And one example, the woman was permitted to pay the money back, but she still hasn't done, and the criminal charges are basically dropped. So yeah, it's crazy. It really is crazy. And if we don't see the government send a very clear message to entities like Fidelity, we don't see the DLP saying, yes, we're going to charge you. Honestly, the man's flippant attitude about being in jail, they should exercise that option with him. They should put him in jail. That's my honest opinion. Let him see how much his money is going to help him out in jail. I'm sure it'll help him, because money will help you anywhere that you go, really. You can get him a free pack of cigarettes or an extra back rub at Her Majesty's pleasure in Northwood Prison. I don't know, but his flippant attitude, even about that, I found, incredibly shocking, to be honest. Um, so Don says Facebook update knocked my Facebook off my iPad. Not sure if anyone else has experienced this. So listen, in the world of technology, there was the big anticipated annual iPhone sort of, what do you call it? Conference yesterday, and they covered a bunch of stuff. So there's a new iOS coming out. There's new, changes to the Mac interface and so on. I'm not a Mac PC user, but I do use iPad and iPhone products. And so there are a lot of changes in terms of that. Facebook is always done updating stuff as well. And I think there's some numerous changes right now that have come out as a result of Facebook updates. We need to have a tech day. I keep saying this, and we have yet to do so, but we definitely need to have a tech day to talk about some of the changes that are happening around us. A lot of the changes were designed to help us, during COVID. Like Facebook introduced Facebook groups. Now, I don't know if anybody's used Facebook groups yet. I personally haven't. But they did that, I think, directly to try to compete with Zoom. So that's interesting. And there's lots of stuff going on in the tech world. So Dawn, I haven't experienced that. I don't really use my iPad. Antoinette, I see you. Just hang tight for me 1 second. We're going to bring you in here in a minute. I don't use the iPad for a whole lot of stuff anymore, to be honest. My daughter tends to watch it for her YouTube stuff, and then sometimes I just play like YouTube videos, whatever on it. So I know a lot of you had tons of comments from yesterday's show about Fidelity during the program. My apologies for staying very, very hyper-focused on the message that I was trying to get across. I did not get an opportunity to read a lot of your comments live, but I did see, I think there was like 400 comments. I do know that you guys were really interacting quite a bit. There's still a lot of news going on about COVID-19. We'll talk about some of that. Jamaica reopened their borders over a week ago now. Yesterday was a week, and they continue to have new imported cases. They had just announced on Monday, no, I think that was Sunday, that they had some additional imported cases from Dallas. So most of the imported cases are actually coming via the US. And of course, that makes sense because of the fact that, let's face it, the US has a lot of infections at the moment. So we do have our guest here. We're going to just pull her in quickly. I'm having a little bit of shoulder pain. I'm going to tell you guys about this. I think it was one of those days that I was kind of exercising, doing those push-ups. I may have overextended this particular shoulder a little bit too much. And so now when I reach to do certain things, like I extend it outside of its kind of normal range. Well, not normal range, but I just extend it. I can really feel it in the rotation of like the shoulder, like in the shoulder, what do you call it? The joint itself. So I need to probably get some therapy in that and try to figure that out. So Orville, Linda, Miss Joy, Miss Rosemary. Irvin says, true, if you pay your employees pensions 5 days late, you get not a notice in the mail. As a regular contributor who've missed a payment 5 days, they better deal with him according to the law. Ellie said, I wish that government would implement fees for Fidelity to the people who've been waiting past their time. And that's in the law. They're supposed to do it. It's just a matter now of enforcement. He's admitted that he's going to be breaking the law, and he doesn't seem to care very much. Dave says it's a shame how Cayman allows these companies to treat their daughters, sons, uncles, aunts, mothers, and fathers, nieces, and nephews like second-class citizens. Cayman should be for Caymanians in every possible way. It's time to put Caymanians first, and there is too much abuse by the public sector on Caymanians, especially in the workplace. And Fidelity is just sharing what he thinks about Cayman and its people. Hashtag put Caymanians first. Yeah. Jake said, didn't get say he paid his employees well, but yet in the same breath say that we live from paycheck to paycheck. We all know Fidelity doesn't pay well. You know, Jake, the interesting thing about that is I have never heard of Fidelity paying well either. So when he said that, I kind of chuckled to myself. And this really shows the disconnect in his head of how he's living in an alternative reality. He has no clue. Maybe they're paying him well, and that's what he's confusing people with. But he's like, oh, you know, we're good paymasters. I have never, ever, ever, ever heard that about Fidelity. You know, I don't know what he considers decent pay, but at the end of the day, I don't think that that's actually what's happening. And like I said, he's in a position to offer financial courses for free to his staff. I wonder if he's ever done that. He's, you know, able to talk to them about money management and so on. You know, most of us are indebted to a bank for at least a mortgage, if not more. Sorry, in terms of a car payment. And then, you know, other than that, your next highest bill is likely to be CUC. I don't see him talking about, you know, what things can be put in place to help people with their CUC contributions and so on. So Tanisha says Fidelity has to pay, or they will pay somehow. I keep emailing and finally got through and approved. Well, glad that you got approved. Now let us know when you get your money. Jasara says, yes, big up to Cayman National. So just a quick update before we bring our guests into the show. Mason says, I agree. Sandra, all businesses should boycott Fidelity. Amanda says, Silver Thatch, gotta love him. So just a quick note about Leroy, thank you for the comments about yesterday's show. Just a quick note about yesterday. Good morning, Remy. How are you? Big up to Chef Remy. You guys know I've talked about Chef Remy before and how much I love his cooking. So over the weekend, Chef Remy, who does catering, had a Father's Day special. And man, the food was legit off the chain good. So I engaged his services. We had lobster and shrimp, and then I made a couple sides to go with it because, you know, Caymanians, we love our sides. We got to have macaroni and cheese, all this kind of stuff. So I made a couple desserts to go with it and some sides. And we had a good little, our first available gathering of a few people to celebrate Father's Day. And as you guys know, this would have been my husband's first Father's Day without his own father. So of course, you know, just to try to make it a little bit extra special. And Chef Remy really helped with that. And we had a beautiful soup. I think it was butter squash soup or something. Oh my gosh, it's so delicious. I had leftovers of that last night. Super yummy. So Chef Remy, again, big shout out to you and your culinary skills. Rosemary says she's joining us from Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. She said, our bloatus has got to go. He's I don't know, boy, he's legit serious, but I saw he had some, we'll talk about this another time, but I saw he had some big time rally over the weekend that did not go as well as he thought that it would. And he had far fewer people attend, which, why would people be attending these rallies with COVID all over the place? Tracy says, Sandra, stop. You're making me hungry. I know, girl. It was so, like last night, I literally had a plate of leftovers and it was seriously delicious. And you guys know I love my food. So I try not to lie about anything, but definitely the last thing in the world that I'm going to be lying about is food, because that is like at the core of my existence is a good meal. If nothing else in life, I want to be able to eat well, you know, pay my bills and eat well. So listen, let's join Miss Antoinette. She's going to be joining us now, and she's going to be telling us a little bit about Fidelity. So like I said on yesterday's show, the CEO and president, Mr. Brett Hill, wants us to believe that these issues that Fidelity are having right now are new. And he claims that he's never had any customer service or, as he said, any public relations issues previously. And we determined yesterday that that is actually not the truth. And we have numerous examples that people can cite to demonstrate where they have over the years had issues with Fidelity. And it comes down to basic customer service and responsiveness and so on. And so we want to bring in Antoinette to hear a little bit about her personal ordeal with Fidelity and her story. So Antoinette, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes, it's Antoinette.
Okay, so I have my, okay, just say that again, make sure I can hear you.
Antoinette without an I.
I can't hear you. Oh, there you go. Yes, now I can hear you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, I've got the name correct?
Yes, you did.
Okay, so Miss Antoinette, you are here this morning to tell us a little bit about your own personal experiences with Fidelity. You know, like we said on yesterday's show, Mr. Brett has indicated to the people that basically there are no issues with Fidelity, generally speaking. And you reached out during this COVID situation to kind of explain a problem that you've been having for quite some time. So let's start at the beginning. When did you start this process of trying to acquire your own home? How long ago are we talking about now?
Okay, February, the 11th of February,
This is February of what year? That's this year?
This year, 2020.
Okay.
However, the house, the property is already finished.
Yes.
Since the week before Christmas. And I have applied for the pension, which is due to me mandatory, you know.
Right. So you started looking for a home from last year.
Yes.
You're building your own home, or you found a development, I guess it's building homes, right?
Front hall homes.
Yes. Okay. So those are very affordable homes. You identified a house, you signed a contract, you got your loan approved from your own bank, you've went through all of that process. And anyone who has been through that, who has acquired a home in the Cayman Islands, knows that it's not an easy thing to be able to do. I mean, there's tons of paperwork that you have to go through. Obviously, you have to meet with a loans officer. They're going to make an assessment on whether or not you can afford the property. There is quite a bit involved in even getting a mortgage approved. So you did all of that. You've identified a house. You've actually, I guess, signed, you know, the contract with the property developers at Frank Hall that you'd be purchasing this house. So tell us what happened between December and February, because it was in February that you actually applied for your pension funds?
In February, yes.
Okay.
And I got the letter from the bank, which I took to my pension office, and I hand delivered it. Upon, you know, handing it, the pension administrator, the junior pension administrator, looked at it and said, "It's not what they require. I need to take it back to the bank to have it amended." She told me what it was that needs to be done. So I said to her, "Why don't you email her and explain what needs to be amended, and then I will bring it back." I left that same day and I brought it back to the bank. 2 days after, the bank called me, "The document is ready." I went and picked it up and I hand delivered it again to the same person, and she took it. I asked her, what next? You know, because this is my first time. But I'm actually getting a loan too, so I don't know the procedures. However, the attitude in which she responded was very despicable and unprofessional. I left, and time passed. She had sent me a gazetted the information that the government required for me to obtain that portion of the pension. I go through it, the time passed, and on the 5th of March, I wrote to them. Calling them is a waste of time. You only get the voicemail, and when you get the voicemail, you leave a message, you don't get a call back. on the 5th of March. No, this is on the between the 13th and the 14th of February. I hand delivered that document. I haven't heard anything else from them. 5th of March, I emailed inquiring, and between that time span, I called, and the attitude that I got is like, okay, the document is with the Labor and Pension Department, and if I don't get a response from them, what else do you want me to do? I find that very disturbing. So I wrote the pension administrator, which is the person that is above the junior administrator. And I even said to her that I am going to report her. I'm going to contact the Pension and Labor Board.
Yes.
And would you believe me, in her response, she said, go ahead.
Wow.
I have the email here to prove it dated the 5th of, it dated in March, right? And in other words, she in the email, she said, go ahead. So my opinion is that it means, okay, go ahead. Who cares? You know? So
Wow.
that is how, is after that I reached out to you.
Right.
I've been telling people about it, and they're complaining. They said they're having the same issues. And it's not just one person, not just two persons. It's quite a few persons I have complained to, and I'm reaching out to people. Do you know anyone in Fidelity who you could talk to on my behalf and stuff like that? You know, and everybody's like, Fidelity, Fidelity. And the funny thing, Miss Sandra, I had my pension at a good pension office because I was into pension and insurance.
Right.
Right. So I know what customer service is.
Yes.
I used to work with British American Insurance. I was a manager there, a branch manager. So I know what customer service is. I have my certificates from doing my exams, and customer service is one of those exams that you have to take.
Of course.
Anyway, I been reaching out. Nobody getting to me. I even emailed Mr. Hill and I complained about the service that I got. And in fact, he responded to me and he said to me, this is not something that he tolerates. And he apologized for the behavior, that the way I was treated.
Yes.
He did apologize. He even gave me his cell number and his direct number if I wanted to talk. I did not get back in touch with him. And when I did that, all of a sudden, Miss Sandy, emails start coming in. Everybody now start to respond to me. And the only way that I got response from those people is because I have reached out to you.
What a shame.
Nobody.
So it seems like there's a lot of red tape that's being created. Now, I'll be honest with you, Miss Antoinette. I went through this process some years back myself with Silver Thatch, and it was very straightforward. I mean, you know, you get your bank loan approved. The loan is approved on the stipulation of certain things being in place. So, you know, you've got to actually complete, even after the loan is approved, there's certain criteria that you have to meet. You have to complete in order to actually get eventually to the property being purchased and the closing to happen, right? And one of those things is you've got to get your money together. So yes, the bank will say, sure, we'll approve you to buy this house. However, as we all know, we don't have cash just laying around, but you know, you've got to come up with a certain percentage of your own money. So there's this down payment requirement. And oftentimes the whole reason why I think this legislation was passed, which we know that Mr. Ilya Solomon was the one who brought this to the Legislative Assembly, so kudos to him, was to allow people to action a portion of their pension fund. You
Yes.
can't access the whole thing. And
No.
depending on how much you have in pensions, you may not even be accessing the majority of it. It's capped off, I think, at 30 or
35.
$35,000,
Yes.
right? So you have to apply for that, and your pension company has to actually assist you with that process, because you apply
Yes.
to them and there's steps that are required. And even when you access the pension fund, there are things that you're signing off on in terms of what the Department of Labor and Pensions, that you're not going to be selling this house. It's going to be your primary place of residence. You're not
Yes.
going to be using it as rental property. There are very, very strict requirements for you to be able to access this money. But from my own experience with Silver Thatch, putting in the paperwork and speaking with them and getting it done was very straightforward. I mean, they told me the average time that it would take to process the application. In fact, they took a lot shorter than that. You filled out the form. Silver Thatch wasn't in my business, which I think is what's happening now with you and Fidelity. And I'm going to go back to some of the emails, is that they seem to be asking you or saying to you that they're not going to approve the form that you have filled out or your access to your funds until you can prove to them otherwise that you have the rest of the money to secure the mortgage and secure the property. Is that what you're understanding from the last bit of correspondence that you've gotten
For
from
the
them?
last one, yes. But in other words, why would the bank pick up money and give me a loan if I didn't have security?
Right.
Right?
Yes.
And I have it, and it shows in there that how much all I needed was that portion of money. And I have that money secured, my closing cost, my down payment, and everything. And from the information that the junior administrator sent me, which I believe came from a portion of the gazetted document from the government, it says, and I will quote, evidence the person is a Caymanian. See enclosed document as to see what is acceptable. Copy of a letter issued by the financial institution addressed to the person making the application showing approval in principle of the loan to purchase an existing unit, construct a new dwelling unit, or purchase residential land in the islands, and the deposit amount that is required. Now, the deposit amount that is required, it's there. I have already secured that. From the day from last year, that has been in place initially. Right? The letter is to be addressed to the applicant in full name and everything. All that has been done. My question is this, Ms. Sandra. After I personally hand delivered that letter to the pension office, Fidelity, and they submitted to the Labor and Pension Board, do they follow up on those applications, not just mine, other customers or clients, whatever they call them, application with that department? I don't think so, because if they do, then when I call and I make inquiries, they would have information to give me.
Right.
So I don't believe they followed up. They just hand it over and that's it. I have been in communication with the Deputy Director of Labor and Pension. The lawyer have been in contact with her. And it's just a back and forth. And all she's saying is that, okay, I'm going to go through it this week and you'll hear from me on Tuesday. Sunday, you'll get an email showing that, okay, this is the situation and that. And why has it taken so long from February 13 to 14 to now in June to let me know that the letter is not properly addressed? Why has it taken so long?
Yes.
Right? That is my problem. And at the foot of the letter, the last thing, the deputy is saying that it seems as though we'll have to have a form for those kind of applications for people acquiring home. That has nothing to do with me. That is internal. That has to deal with your department. Why
Mhm.
send that to me in my letter, in the letter that in my correspondence?
Well, I mean, the part that confuses me, Miss Antoinette, is the Department of Labor and Pensions. This isn't something new. People being able to access their pension funds. So this is, an option that has been around for many years now. And so this is something that should be well organized. This isn't brain surgery here. And in fact, I just going from my memory, when I actually applied, they do have a form at the Department of Labor and Pensions that you fill out because you have to do a declaration. So there's some sort of declaration that you sign with the DLP, basically, and you have to pay a government fee and everything as well, where you basically are confirming that yes, this money is going to be used for a mortgage, and you have to give them information on the mortgage and your details and so forth as well. So I recall there being some sort of either letter or form or documentation that you actually have to fill out with the DLP office. So it seems very strange that that they're saying to you that there should be some sort of form. I don't know what they're even referring to.
And the bank is even confused because the letter that they had given me is a letter that they have been sending out over the period of time to their customers to take to the pension board, and it has been approved. Those letters have been approved. So they have a format in which they do the letters and give to the customers, and they'll take it to the pension board. So mine is one of those formatted letters.
Wow.
So why approve the previous ones and not? And quite frankly, these laws change. And the laws are changed, and it's only the people who are internal know about the changes. And when the external people, the public knows about it, is when they encounter it, is when they have to make a submission or an application. That is when you hear that, oh, it changed. And all along we didn't know. So the bank didn't know, I didn't know, and obviously the only people who know is the pension, the labor and pension department.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Right. So, and one of the things that I find so frustrating is that when you contribute to your pension fund, you are given all the treatments that you need, because you know what? At the end of the month, there's a commission coming in for me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I moved my pension and I put it there. No. Fidelity has a good pension plan. It's a good pension fund. It's very good. But the problem that we're having is the customer service. It is very poor. Very poor. Communication is very, very poor. Either they don't know how to communicate with the customer or to relate to them, because if you ask them a question, Ms. Sandra, right now the documents that is required to submit to them, I already have them notarized. It's the 10th of March.
Wow.
Right? Because I went through the list that she sent me and said, you have to get all of these, your status, your proof of this and that and that and that. And I got those and I got them notarized from that time, awaiting a speedy response. And you're going to tell me February, March, April, May, June. This has nothing to do with COVID.
Yeah.
And I do empathize with them and sympathize for the hard work that the workload that is coming in. Yes, I understand that. But you have to bear in mind, my application has nothing to do with COVID. Right? Where I'm living, it's temporary.
Yes.
And I reached out to them and let them know I have time period that I have to leave. And now can you imagine, you have to leave and now you have to be in a place where you have to be paying rent? That defeats the purpose of me getting a house.
Mm-hmm.
So the money that I'm paying for rent should have been going into the mortgage payment.
Exactly.
The house is completed, all the paperwork is finished from the bank, or everything is needed. All is needed is something from the pension board relating, yes, that is it, approval. And Fidelity and the bank will wait upon the arrival of the check from the pension. That is all they need.
Right. Unbelievable.
So now I had to go back to the bank again to get
Yeah.
this letter amended to take back to the pension, the Labor and Pension Board.
Wow.
It's very frustrating.
It's a lot of run around, and it seems like unfortunately they don't have their processes streamlined, or they don't know what they're doing. I'm not sure which one it is, but in the process, they are actually frustrating you. And I know that if they're frustrating you, I'm pretty sure that they are frustrating others as well.
Like I said, I have been talking to people. I have been talking to
Mhm.
people, and I am one of those people who will be moving my pension from them.
Mhm.
I will be moving, right? There
Mhm.
are others who will be moving. Companies will be moving,
Yes.
right? That I am sure
Yeah.
of and that I am confident of and that I know of. And it's not a company that has 2, 3 employees.
Yes.
It has like 30, 40 employees,
Mm.
well paid salaries,
Yeah.
right?
I'm just trying to find the form. Someone, Marina, mentioned, correct, Sandy, you need a notarized promissory from pension board, if I remember right. This seems crazy. My process from chamber for this matter was so straightforward. I was told process took 45 days. They were guiding my bank, Scotia, chamber, and pension board were all informative. And chamber handed me my check for the bank on day 44. And I do remember there's some sort of form. I think she's right about that because I remember actually going to the DLP myself, and there was some sort of like stamp duty or form or some sort of payment that you had to pay with that form as well. And you had to get that notarized. I was just trying to have a look on their website to see if I could locate it, but here it is: pension housing withdrawal form dating back to, this was on their website from May of 2016. So it's not a new form. And this is on there as well. So, I mean, these processes have been in place. So any
Then,
idea why do you think Fidelity is struggling with something
then
that seems so basic?
Fidelity sent me a form that with the requirements for me to fill out.
Yes.
Now, like I said, this is my first time and I'm gathering information. I called the junior pension administrator and I asked her, you know, I've gotten the forms, but I'm having a problem. I cannot open the form and the spaces between it. I cannot type to actually say it's in PDF. I said to her, I cannot get it open. How can you? You know what she tell me? That is how it come from the Labor and Pension Board, and there's nothing I can do about it. Exact tone of voice, exact words.
Wow.
Right
Wow.
now, as a customer, I come to you and I need help. I need advice from you. I believe it is in your best interest as well as mine to
Mm,
explain and tell me, you know, you could, this is how you go about doing it. And
mm,
if I were in her, if I was in her shoes, the next thing I would do, I would contact the Labor and Pension Board. Can we get this in Word? Can we get this in Excel? Can we, whatever spreadsheet we can get it in? Can we
mm.
get it in that so as to make it easier and accessible for the customers?
Right.
You responding to me in that manner, it's unbecoming. It's not business-like. It's not professional.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I'm gonna just try to pull up just try to show people what this form looks like. Because, like I said, there shouldn't be anything complicated here. It is a very straightforward form. Um, and in fact, I'm going to show it to you guys. It's only 4 pages long. So it starts off with
Yes, it's a form similar to that they sent
yeah,
me, right? But
yep,
I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it to open. So I was asking her, for information, for guidelines, for how I could go and get in order to get it done.
yeah.
However, this form, when I fill it out, I cannot sign it until I take it back to them.
Yes,
And
because
that is
there is
why,
a requirement that this
right.
declaration, because
So,
that's what this is, needs to be witnessed
right.
and so
So
on. Yeah.
the rest of the documents that are needed, I
Mhm.
already have them in place, get them notarized and
Mhm.
everything. I'm waiting because they said I have to make an appointment with them now. After, how will I know when to make the appointment with them?
Right.
I have to call them, make an appointment, and bring the documents in. Once they hear back from the labor and pension. If now during this time they're not communicating with me and they have taken so long and they're not following up with the labor department, I
Mhm.
don't think they will ever get in touch with me.
Huh.
I don't
Right.
believe so. And worse now, this pressure that is on, make it even worse. And that big acquisition that took place,
Yes.
this is now I ain't getting. This is now things are turning upside down. The last
Yeah.
person I spoke to even last night, and I was saying, it seems as though things is coming along. I might be getting my money soon. I may be moving in my house by the end of the month. You know what
Mm.
the person's response is? Make sure you get it before they file bankruptcy.
Mm. And the thing about it, Miss Antoinette, is we don't know. We haven't seen Fidelity's books. I mean, we hear people talking. We don't know anything, about their fiscal position or their strength because we haven't seen the books. Most of us wouldn't even know what we were looking at if we were seeing them. But we reached out to Fidelity, and I mentioned this on yesterday's program. Mr. Brett claims that CMR is engaging in some sort of preferential treatment of Silver Thatch, because we have some sort of special relationship with Silver Thatch, apparently, that I don't know anything about. But at the end of the day, before he even made his comments, he would have been aware of the fact that we had reached out to their head office and we had said to them, there are concerns in the community about the fiscal viability, the financial viability of Fidelity. So, the truth of the matter is, people are questioning what is going on with Fidelity. There's this rumor that they had been bought out, which we know that acquisition took place, I think, in February or something earlier in the year. And people are saying, does Fidelity have the money? Listen, the best way to address a rumor is head on. You don't ignore it. You don't allow the gossip mills the literal mall road to continue to fester with these comments and do nothing about it. And that is why we reached out to them and said, listen, we don't know if you guys are aware, but the streets are talking, and this is what the streets are saying. And I think it's best that you guys try to clarify this and say exactly what's going on. So I'm surprised that Mr. Brett, who has expressed himself in the Legislative Assembly, who's basically said that he has no issues sharing his thoughts and opinions, and apparently he does that quite well from what we saw on Friday. The question then becomes, why not talk to the people of the Cayman Islands? Fidelity is a financial institution here. They have a bank, they have an insurance company, they have a pension plan. They have a lot of customers that live and reside in Caymanians right here in the Cayman Islands. Why not just have frank and open dialogue with your customers to alleviate their fears and let them know what is going on? And I think it's unfortunate that Miss Antoinette has been placed in this position where she has had to basically go through the ringer. And as a first time home buyer, there's nothing more nerve wracking, I think, than people who are not customer centric, who are not friendly. Jake made a comment that this is horrible, but he says that poor customer service in the Cayman Islands isn't anything that's probably unique to Fidelity. That unfortunately there are a lot of, he says, to be 100% honest, customer service is an issue in Cayman, and it's not just Fidelity. So there's a lot of companies that need to get it together. And that is a sad indictment, I think, on us as a country and as these corporate entities who are serving the public. I had someone over the weekend, a young man, who was saying the exact same thing. He was talking about several of his experiences, including getting food poisoning, horrific food poisoning, he alleges, at a local restaurant. And the response of management was just unbelievable. He was talking about going to one of the what do you call them, like auto parts stores or whatever. And, just the way that people are treating their customers and talking to them, I find shocking, especially in a time like COVID-19, where you think they would be really focused on trying to keep their customers happy. Because if your customers have a choice, they will definitely be going elsewhere because of poor customer service. So Tracy says they've had these people up front interacting with customers and nothing named customer service. Leroy says that we might be getting under someone's skin at Fidelity. Well, the aim is to try to help the consumers. So we reached out to Fidelity. We reached out to Antoinette. Sorry, I think some of your mortgage people were copied on the correspondence. We reached out to the DLP office, emailed everyone saying, listen, we don't like to put people on blast here in Cayman Law Road. That's not really the most effective and first response all the time. Try to see if you can resolve this. This woman just wants her pension money that she's put into her pension account so that she can purchase her first home and have that little bit of security and work towards securing her future. This seems like a very simple situation to fix. What's going on here? Why hasn't it been resolved? And Antoinette, as you know, that email was sent. I can't remember the exact day that you initially contacted me. I can probably have a look here. But that email was sent over a month ago, and still we're waiting on people to respond. We're going through the ringer. So Antoinette, we know that you're very busy. So just wrap it up for us in terms of, where you're at with this and how hopeful are you that this will be resolved here shortly?
Presently, the letter went back to the bank for amendment.
Mm-hmm.
And I spoke with the person that is dealing with it at the bank, and she's just awaiting for her boss to sign off on the letter. So hopefully today I will be able to get it from them and to be able to email it back to Miss Amy. And that is where I am with it right now, with all the back and forth.
Wow.
So hopefully this time, because as you can see in her letter, she said she need to know how much the down payment is, how much the cost of the property, how much the down payment is that I come up with, and all that is hopefully will be outlined in the letter, how much the bank is lending me and how much I have. And the only reason why I reach out to the pension is that I believe if you're entitled to something, you're supposed to get it, as long as you have the right documentations as required. And that is all I need. I have everything else, and that is all I need. And quite frankly, Miss Sandra, at the point in time when I last checked my pay, and to tell you the truth, from I hand those documents to the Miss Amy reached out to me and asked me for a copy of my pension statement. I sent it to her. From that time that I sent it to her, is it now that you realize that the letter from the bank is not up to par? Those are the questions that I have. I need answers. Why is it not? Why? Okay, you sent to me. You've been talking since March. You've been talking to the lawyer, one of Scotiabank's lawyer, right? because they are now waiting on the closing because everything else is done. The house is there,
Right.
no, just built and there and nothing, no one live in it. It's just there. Why have a property and it's there when you could be getting funds from it?
Yes.
My question again is that why is it taking so long for you to now realize that, hey, the letter isn't correct? Well, why did you send for my pension statement? You have it
Yeah.
since March, the beginning of March, before this COVID thing, right? And you're going to come and tell me now in June that the letter is not dated, the letter is not addressed properly. You need all this information and all that information. That doesn't make sense. And you know what? A lot of them are using this COVID to hide as a smoke screen.
Yes.
A lot of them are using the COVID as an excuse.
I agree.
I am not going anywhere. I am not applying for the COVID funds. I have no place to go. This is my home. My husband died 7 years ago. I use my proceeds to invest in to try to invest in a home. Come on now. I need help. I am 53 years old. No other bank not lending me any money at my age. And I get this opportunity. Let me run with it. Don't stifle the people of the country. Give them opportunities. Let them soar. Whether you're young, old, black, white, whatever creed you're from, it doesn't matter. Help us. Help the people. Let us excel. Do you want us to go to government to be living on social welfare? I don't think so. Is that what you want me to go for the government to find housing for me? No, I am helping myself. So please help me.
Yeah.
And a lot of Caymanians don't want to talk out. But I'm not afraid to talk out because hear what? I work hard. I contribute to the pension fund. Right? I am not taking my money to go no place. This is where I live. This is my home. This is my country.
Yes.
And I love this little piece of rock. I came here when I was 27 years old.
Right.
I was into insurance and pension. My husband was into insurance and pension. So I know what customer service is. I know what they're talking. They pay the money, they don't educate the clients. So a lot of them have questions. Do you know that to get access to your statement online with Fidelity, you don't know, you just go into the post office waiting to get your statement like everything else, and only to find out, oh, you have to go online. How about those people who don't have access to a computer? How about those people who do not computer literate?
Right.
Come on now.
Wow. Well, Miss Antoinette, thank you so much for joining us this morning and telling us a little bit about your ordeal with them. We appreciate you sharing your story, and we are hopeful for a resolution in, hopefully the short order. I mean, Fidelity has basically said, the president admitted to a number of issues that they're having, everything from IT to, he never said that staffing was an issue. He never said customer service was an issue, but clearly I think he's missing the mark. And like I said on yesterday's show, he would be aware of some of these things. So he's being less than honest with the members of the Legislative Assembly about the struggles that Fidelity is having. And we're not trying to put the full blame on him as a leader of that organization, but as the leader of any organization, you have to take responsibility for what is happening within your company, and you do something about it. And that, I think, is where there appears to be a real issue. So thank you again this morning for joining us. We appreciate it. Please keep me updated on where we are with this situation. We've given Fidelity, we've given the DLP every opportunity to address this before bringing the story to the public, because we felt like, that was the right thing to do. And now they've had over a month, and we just see a lot of back and forth, a lot of deadlines being met, a lot of people having excuses about why they can't look into your situation or to respond to you. So we are hopeful for a positive resolution and that you'll be able to get into your home in short order.
Thank you for having me, and I thanks for the good work that you're doing, because if it wasn't for you, I would not have reached this far. I would not have been heard, and no one would have known about my situation.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, and you have a wonderful day, and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much, honey. You're welcome.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, folks. So hopefully Miss Antoinette will again get a positive resolution to the situation. I can only imagine her frustrations. I mean, when you're buying a home, especially your first home, and like she said, she's 53 years old. She's, coming closer and closer to that retirement age. It would be nice for her to just have that freedom of being able to get into her own home and not have to continue paying rent. She can work towards home ownership. And when these obstacles are put in your way, it is a very frustrating process. I mean, I think a lot of us have been there, and we've experienced these sorts of things, dealing with poor customer service at banks or insurance companies, or in this case, pension companies, the DLP. They need to get their act together. Like, none of this is really all of that difficult, and it really shouldn't be. And I've got to tell you, one of the reasons why, a lot of you hear me going hard for Cayman National Bank. And listen, like anybody, there are times that their customer service may have not been 100% on point. But let me tell you why I respect CNB, right? When we were applying for our mortgage, my mortgage officer was Andrew Williams, and Mr. Oh gosh, let me tell you, Andrew and John Lewis. So Andrew and John, they work hand in hand together. And, first we met with Andrew, and he said, okay, these are the requirements. Here's what you need. It was very simple in the sense that everything was laid out. We had an initial meeting. We looked at the numbers, and he said, this is where your numbers need to be. This is, what we're going to need from you. There's some numbers that fluctuate slightly, like lawyer fees and stuff. So he said, listen, we can't tell you the exact final amount that you're going to need to come up with, but it's going to be in this ball figure, give or take a little bit, because, they use different lawyers. So depending on which lawyers being used at that particular time, the actual legal fees can vary a little bit. But there's some fees that are set, for example, what your stamp duty is going to be. If you're intending to make access of the right to apply for a stamp duty waiver, get all of these things in place. He gave you a list. This is what you need for us. This, there was no back and forth. And, in the process of this, I was actually trying to sell my apartment. And we decided that it would be too much fiscally to try to keep an apartment and to acquire a mortgage in a house. It was doable, but talking about living paycheck to paycheck, that would have placed us in that position without having that little extra cushion every single month. So I said, nope, let's get, let's not be greedy here. Look at the bigger picture. Let's unload the apartment. And then that frees up funds for us to be able to do other stuff with the house, like furnishing the house, because nobody wants to move into a brand new house and you can't even afford to fix it up the way that you want. You can't afford the furniture that you want, or, so there was considerable equity in the apartment. And my viewpoint was, let's unload the apartment, let's sell the apartment. And then, that gives us that little bit of extra cushion to do things and to be comfortable in your own home and to set it up the way that you would like to set it up. So one of the persons that was interested in purchasing my house, she's a civil servant, very much like Antoinette, a little bit older, a single woman. And, she loved my apartment. We had done upgrades to it recently before it was sold, and totally redid the downstairs, like gutted the kitchen, and, new cabinets, new tiling, like a lot of upgrades. And it's an older apartment complex. There's only 4 units, but it was spacious because it is older. Back in those days, you got a little bit more square footage out of these developers. So anyway, this lady loved it. She made an offer. She pretty much said asking price is fine. And she went to, because she's a civil servant, she went to credit union. And she was told by credit union, okay, this is what you need to come up with. This is what you need to do, et cetera, et cetera. She went and purchased a valuation. So she paid for the valuation, had that done, got all of her paperwork submitted to credit union, only to be told at like the 10th hour, it wasn't quite the 11th hour, because I guess they hadn't like finally approved the loan or whatever yet, only to be told that some miscalculation had occurred with the figure that they had given her, that she needs to come up for the down payment. So instead of, let me just give you an example of what we're talking about here. Instead of it being $20,000, it's going to be $40,000. I can't remember the exact amount. I just know that it was double whatever she had initially been told. Now, you can imagine going through, and again, civil servants don't have the option of accessing their pension funds for property. So they're in a different situation. They can't do that with the public service pension fund. So she had, if it was say 20 grand that they told her, she'd had and was able to secure that. When they flipped the switch in her and said, oh no, somebody made a mistake, the person you met with made a mistake, it's actually $40,000 that you need. That is a significant difference. And it's like people expect you to be able to just pull money out of thin air for these types of things. Like, oh, okay. First you said 20 grand, now you say 40 grand. No big deal. That's okay. Yep, we can do that. And I felt so bad for her because this was a woman who is a woman of extreme faith. And literally, she was there, at credit union in the parking lot praying for a miracle. Because one day she said to me, oh, yes, today I'm definitely going to get the money. And I said, oh, you are? Because, when you're selling a home, I think the difference with Miss Antoinette, luckily for her, is her home is a brand new build and it's just kind of sitting there. It's not a situation where someone is actually selling the house and, she better come and get it or else there's going to be an issue because they're going to have other offers that they need to consider. And that's just how the real world works. So I said to this woman, I'm trying to hold it out for you, but if I have another offer, I kind of had to start considering my options because I do want to get the property sold. So let me tell you what credit union did, right? So after they told her this, the woman was in such a state of shock. I called her one day and she said, yes. I'm getting the money today. And I said, oh, well, that's fantastic. And, I'm thinking, okay, someone's going to help her with this money. And this is a situation. What she was actually doing was, very sadly, is she was at the credit union, just sitting in her car, praying that God would deliver this money to her. And that was the miracle that she was actually sitting down waiting for. And so I thought about the situation. Obviously, she was not in a position to afford the apartment. I contacted credit union to say, listen, this woman has paid for this valuation on the foundation and on the basis of what was said to her by your loan officer. So your loan officer made a mistake and gave out incorrect information. And as a result of that, this woman has committed, $600, say, that she probably doesn't even have. And so I'm asking you, credit union, to consider reimbursing her the cost of the valuation. I'm just trying to find an email here to show you guys how incredibly rude and unprofessional these organizations are. And that was the basis of the email. I'm actually trying to delve back. This is a number of years ago. But I tell you what, I keep my emails, folks. Let me tell you, you're not going to get too much over in me because I'm documenting my stuff. And that's what has been my saving grace for a number of years. I'm trying to remember the old president of, oh God, credit union. What was her name again? Help me out here, guys. Let me look at your comments. Before the current president, who was there again? She had a sister who was, let me just have a look here. It's gonna come to me here in a second. But anyway, so I sent her an email and I said, I think you guys should consider refunding this woman her money. Let me tell you what they did. She is, I think she had a sister that was head over at the post office, Glasgow. Thank you, Katrina. Yes. Let me search by that and see if I can find this email. Because the things that people do, now, this was the CEO, president, managing director, whatever her position is at the credit union, right? I'm expecting her to show good leadership at the very least. So what she did was when I emailed her and I said, this is the situation. Now, you guys know I had an incident with them back in 2014 that they had to issue a letter of apology for. I have since moved my business from Corrine Glasgow, that's her name. I have since moved my business from credit union. As a matter of fact, I closed out my account and I moved every single bit of, I think it was $20,000 from there, put it in CNB, and I said, I am done with credit union. Their lack of unprofessionalism, their lack of security measures in terms of who has access to your account, and all of those things were just a little bit too much for me at the end of the day. So this lady, Miss Glasgow, I emailed her and I think the senior loans officer or whatever, and said, this is what happened in this situation. Would you guys consider refunding this woman her money back so that she can, do whatever with that money? Because obviously she's not going to be able to afford to get this mortgage because you just doubled the fees on her. So Miss Corrine, in her infinite wisdom and unprofessionalism, turned around and emailed her staff. But it's just so amazing how, these people they're trying to be rude to you and then they don't even know how to use the technology that they have in front of them. So Miss Corrine turned around and sent an email to her staff. It was not intended for me, where she basically said, "Oh, look at what Sandra's up to these days," or something to that effect. I'm actually trying to find the email because I know I should have it here, right? And this first of all, it had nothing to do with me. The situation was trying to help this other lady. And so I said to her, I replied back and I said, for a leader of an organization, you're supposed to be setting the tone for that organization. But your lack of professionalism is just astonishing and amazing to me. And in fact, not only is it unprofessional what you've just done, but you have set the tone for your staff to know that this type of comment or behavior is somehow acceptable. I said, anywhere else in the world, you'd probably be fired from your job. Your level of just utmost incompetence. Here you are trying to, I guess, say something about me, because you guys have obviously had these discussions before. I'm trying to help someone who is one of your clients and your customers, right? You guys misinformed her, gave her wrong information, and there are no consequences for that. You made her spend money out of pocket that she didn't have to spend. How can you, in good conscience, knowing that this is a single woman who's a little bit older, a little bit closer to retirement, trying to acquire her first property, how can you even proceed with making the focus somehow be on me? So I actually copied her as well as the rest of her board. And I said, you guys are ridiculous, all of you, because you sit back and you allow the CEO of your organization to treat your clients like this, and there's absolutely no repercussions. And her focus is to sit down and gossip about, oh, well, look at what Sandra's up to. Oh, she's sending us an email. I'm sending you an email trying to help out one of your customers. You know what I'm saying? At that point, I was already done with credit union. So I didn't really care. I had moved on, whatever. But, that's their attitude. And that is unfortunately, how they work. And so thank you. Somebody else sent me the message saying, Corey in Glasgow. Yes, my dear child, that was the mess at the time. And, this woman ended up wasting this money. I wish that I had the money to somehow pay her for what she had spent. But the lack of professionalism, and they never, again, this lady is a meek Caymanian. She was just like, God's going to provide for me, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, honey, God will provide, yes. But at the same time, you also need to be, pushing for certain things. And you have been woefully misinformed by credit union. So I suggest you reach out to them and you try to say, at the very least, give me the money back that I have spent on this. It was just ridiculous on this valuation, and they just put the poor woman through the ringer. I'm just revisiting some of the messages, the back and forth that I had with her. It was just wrong. It was really, really just wrong. And then the lack of, like I said, professionalism in-house of how they then turned around and responded to me. And I'm sorry, but I have no compunction about calling out Corrine Glasgow. It's a true story. And at the time I said to her, I said, wow, I said, you are the most unprofessional. I don't even know if I used the B word. I may have called her a bitch, but I know for sure that I said, you are extremely unprofessional woman. And you should be ashamed of yourself that this is what you're engaging in. And that somehow you think that this is okay to be, oh, well, this is what Sandra's doing. This isn't about me. This is about your staff, your employees having given out misinformation that caused this poor woman to go out there and spend money on a property that now you're telling her that she needs to come up with not $20,000, but $40,000 of her own money as a down payment, and she cannot afford it. So the least that you could do, right? She's been a customer because she's been a civil servant for a long time. The least that you could do is give her money back that she spent on this evaluation, which had she known that the requirement was for her to come up with $40,000, she didn't have it. So she would have said, okay, this is outside of what, but she went off of what these people were telling her. So going back to why I respect CNP, and I personally have had that situation with Scotiabank as well. You go and you sit down with someone, you give them all the numbers on the property. Okay, this is how much the property is, and they do stuff and tell you, okay, this is what it's going to be. Come back later on and same thing, double the amount. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's not going to be that again. It's going to be this. And you're like, do you think people just go outside and a bag of money, just like 25 grand just drops out of the sky? Like, it takes a lot for people to be able to find a down payment on a house. Depending on the actual mortgage that you're getting, sometimes down payments can run you all, $60,000, $70,000 easily. Sue says, why be so cruel to this woman? They don't care. Ms. Trilby says that some banks will make you spend all of your money and then deny you the loan. And that's exactly what was happening here. So that's why I said, when I say, listen, kudos to Andrew and John Lewis. I can't speak to everybody at CNB, but I know those guys were on the ball, with everything that I needed. The process was relatively straightforward. In our instance, it was a little something where an evaluation, not an evaluation, but a property survey had to be redone. So that did add a couple months to the process, but that was something that was, not expected. And again, CNB was very much doing their own due diligence to make sure that their rights in this were protected. And I'll never forget that my husband and I were at my place of business at the time on a Friday evening. It was like after I was working late. It was definitely after 6 o'clock, maybe even 7 o'clock in the evening. And we were working, and I see my phone ringing. I'm thinking, oh, who's this calling me from an 815 number or whatever? I'm like, oh, somebody else is working late other than me, is what I was thinking on a Friday. I was kind of like, this is a bit weird. So when I answered the phone, it was the loans team, Andrew and John. And literally on Wednesday, I submitted everything, right? So, what we've been gathering stuff for months and going through the process and doing all the valuations and the surveys and whatever. So that process took months. But on Wednesday, got an email confirmation. Okay, now we have everything. Everything's there. The money for the to say we've got this down payment is actually in the bank account. We've got everything sorted out, whatever. And now it's just waiting in an approval. Friday evening, after 6 minutes to 7 in the evening, I get a phone call from my loan officer saying that the loan had been approved. Like literally 2 days. And that's just how the process was. So I think that banks can do a lot. And I do appreciate that CNB, being a local bank, they do have the ability to make decisions locally. Their board are locals, they meet locally. They're not waiting on people from the Bahamas or Bermuda or Canada or somewhere overseas to dictate to them and to tell them what to do. And that's why I always said we need a local bank. We need to keep things local. Even sometimes when they look at, business loan applications, they can make a determination on the feasibility of that application because they understand the intricacies of the Cayman market and of the Cayman population. Whereas someone halfway around the world in Canada, they're just looking straight at straight numbers. They're not thinking about, oh, well, this little jerk stand, will they be viable in the Cayman Islands? Well, yeah, because everybody eats jerk. And, they don't look, or they don't know those things. They don't have, that's just a silly example, but they don't have the knowledge to be able to make an informed decision based on the uniqueness of us here in the Cayman Islands. And so that's what I find with a lot of these banks, especially the ones that are linked to Canadian entities such as Scotia, Royal Bank of Canada. I think even FCIB, are they now mostly Caribbean, but whatever. You guys know what I mean, right? They have overseas people making these decisions. And they don't always make a decision that is the most sound decision, based on criteria that's specific to us. Even some years ago, remember when they started changing where they were not going to loan money to people who were trying to build homes because there's this huge risk with building a home. Well, the vast majority of Caymanians believe in building a house. There are very few of us who will go out there and find a property that's already built and just purchase. That's more of like something that is reserved for the expat population. Caymanians, they believe in building a house. They think they're going to save money, and then they want to build it to their own specifications where they can customize little things, et cetera, et cetera. And that is something that I think is very unique. It's like a sense of pride for Caymanians to go through this process of building a house. So for all of the Canadian banks to take this position that they're no longer going to loan money to build homes impacts a significant number of Caymanians in this community. They were just like, oh, well, it is what it is. Jasara says they honestly don't care. The real question is, what is the government going to do about it? And again, that remains a question with this breach with Fidelity. Trilby says, my son had the experience of a local bank running him around for a whole year before the loan was approved. Wow. That's crazy. Destiny says, Andrew is great. He used to be at CIBC, and he was the one who gave me my mortgage. Great guy. Debbie says, some institutions here get away with murder, no accountability. I agree with that. And that's just not fair because, again, we all have accountability in a personal level. Trust me, try missing a loan payment and you're going to hear about some accountability. All of a sudden they can file to take your house just like that. And that's the process. That's how it works. But yet on the flip side, you look at these corporate entities, you look at these banks and financial institutions, and they seem to be able to do whatever they want. Sue says, why be so cruel to this woman? I don't know, Sue, if you're talking about this one, Miss Antoinette, or the story I was telling you, but in both instances, there is a level of cruelty there. Women in particular, single women, I think find it very hard to get ahead financially in this world for so many different reasons. And I think that when you see a woman, whether she's a business owner or she's trying to acquire property on her own, go to these financial institutions, it would be nice for them to not necessarily give her preferential treatment, but for them to appreciate that a woman is trying her best to acquire something and to accomplish something on her own without necessarily having the backing of a partner, of a man. And if she can afford it, to try to just assist her as much as possible. So Ms. Antoinette has said this is her first time acquiring a home. So yes, there are things that, she may not be familiar with and may need a little bit more explanation. But even so, it seems like they are truly just giving her the runaround for no legitimate reason whatsoever. On the onset, know what your customers are supposed to be bringing to the table, explain everything fully to them, provide them with the documentation that they need. And Illy says Fidelity has us turning into Karens. Everyone knows the mention of Karen is that crazy woman. It's like crazy white women who call on the police. They'd be like, "Oh, I've got a black man who's trying to beat me and my dog up right now. Call the authorities. Send out the police to shoot him, please." When it was nothing like that. Trilby says, what country is Fidelity based out of? Based on the email that I received from them, it's the Bahamas, because their marketing coordinator or whatever contacted us, and she is actually from Nassau, Bahamas. So I'm assuming that that's their headquarters. And they were bought out by, there was some merger, some buyout or something like that happened earlier this year. So yes, thank you guys so much. Hality says, blessed morning to Miss Antoinette. Thank you so much for your comments. Darlene says, so sad, Lord, I pray here and now that you'll wash Lady Antoinette in and out with your living holy blood. Lord, Lord, please, any weapon that was formed or want to be formed against her, wipe it out right now in Jesus' name, amen. So Darlene, thank you for those kind words and a prayer that Antoinette can get through this process. It is so nerve-wracking. Yes, there's lots of opportunities for customer service training. Even at one of my companies, Micromatrix, we have done customer service training over the years. I was always surprised when people would come in, even civil servants who'd worked for immigration for 20 years, and they would say, this is the first opportunity they've had to go in a training course like this. I'm thinking, wow. Like every single organization should have some sort of customer training, because your workers may not come into your organization when someone is employed. They may not have had the benefit of that previously, or they may not even know the standard at which you were trying to operate. And so you set the tone as leaders in your organization for what you expect and what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable. And this whole poor customer service thing is rampant, unfortunately, in the Cayman Islands. I mean, you guys saw the message that I shared yesterday from another customer at Fidelity, where they had received a message, basically saying, oh, we can't work 24/7. Nobody's expecting you to work 24/7. No one is expecting that. I'm going to show you guys this again, because the level of rudeness, and I know that sometimes emails can take on a certain tone of voice that maybe that isn't the intent when the writer is saying it. But when you say things like, our apologies, but we cannot work 24 hours a day, and we have other responsibilities as well. Well, that was supposed to be well. We all get that, ma'am. We know you can't work 24 hours a day. Nobody works 24 hours a day. So why even make a comment like that? No one is expecting you to work 24 hours a day. So that rude, flippant comment, is just unbelievable. Sometimes I think these people need to pick up, if they don't know how to write a proper, well-toned email, that perhaps they need to pick up the phone and speak to their clients. so that this tone of voice of rudeness doesn't come across in email. But this is obviously rude. I mean, I don't know who else could interpret this any other way. Taking forever to get people their statements isn't something that, if they had the proper systems in place, isn't something that should be happening. Nicole says, and now them out of business, they need to be sued. Someone, speaking of that, contacted me yesterday and said, how can I go about suing them? Do I need to contact my lawyer? And it's unfortunate. It is unfortunate, but at the end of the day, these companies are not investing in their people, obviously, despite the fact that they claim they're so well paid. They're not investing in the computer infrastructures. Like, none of that is happening in order to be able to print off statements, run the NAV reports, all these things. And then they sit back and tell us, well, you're going to just have to wait for your money. Sue says, yes, agreed. One of my daughters done it by herself with the help of CNB. Yeah. While I hear you, Marina says, while I hear you, Sandra, regarding overseas decision, but Erica Dingler at Scotiabank is amazing young woman who also is so hardworking and answers an email when I was sleeping. I think it depends on what we have. Preaching all week, customer service received. Yeah, I mean, listen, there are individuals within these organizations who make it happen. And like I said, for CNB, I can only speak to, in terms of loans, dealing with Andrew and John Lewis, and that they're really on the ball. There may be others who are fallen by the wayside, but I think overall, I have always had good experiences with CNB. If I email them, I have an account manager. If I email him, I'm going to get a response within a short period of time. If I call with an issue, I can reach someone. Even during COVID-19, like, there was some issue with my online access login. I think I locked myself out somehow. And I was able to get someone on the phone who was able to reset it for me. Some of these other banks, I swear to you, no lie, Bible, you call them and you can't get a live person to save your life. It's like a ring, like the phone rings, you're playing musical chairs with the phone. No one actually answers the phone. And that's unfortunate. But listen, I'm a small business owner. I appreciate sometimes things happen, even with the best of intentions. You mean to call someone back, you don't get a chance to call them back. And there are times that you just have to apologize, and then you try to recover from that. And you try to help people, as quickly as you can. Right now, last night, I was up until after 9 o'clock assisting one of my customers with something. And I had to go out and do a delivery. Thank God the curfew's over, so I could be on the road without an issue. But I had said to that customer, you will be getting your devices today. And I was going to do that regardless. And even my husband was like, it's after 9 o'clock. Are you sure you're going anywhere? And I'm like, yep. They lived fairly close by. So I went and made the delivery so that they could plug in their devices and be able to sit down and enjoy their TV and, keep my word, basically. Anne says Butterfield is terrible. I don't bank with Butterfield, but I know people trying to reach them by phone, and it's like near impossible. I actually had a situation with Butterfield where they refused to give me a bank account, and they never said why. Like, it was the most bizarre thing. Like, I asked for a reason, well, what is it? Like, did I do something wrong? And they refused. And I'm like, okay, you don't want me. And again, the response was rude as to, when I'm asking why, like, basically, we don't have to tell you why. I'm like, okay, no problem. I will stick to my other bank. I do have bank accounts elsewhere other than CNB. And I was like, not a worry. I will stick with those. And I've heard of them closing out people's accounts and send them notifications that they were going to be shutting and closing out their accounts. And again, no legit explanation as to why that was happening. So people wonder, like, they just randomly pick people and say, I'm going to shut down your account for no reason, or because somebody doesn't like you, or it's just the most bizarre thing. And I've heard of that happening to a number of persons at Bank of Butterfield in particular, that particular instance. So Dane says, I love how you put everything to them straight up. Years ago, I had the same problem at what was then CIBC. I was trying to pay off a person for a piece of land. And up till today, I've never gotten a call or an excuse from anyone. But everything that you have touched based on starts with the government's failure when it comes to the enforcement part of the law. Absolutely. These a-holes come into this country and do the same BS that they did in their own country. No accountability for the wrong that they do to customers. Yeah. And in other jurisdictions, the government is always bailing these banks out and giving them all sorts of, turning the blind eye kind of thing, and all sorts of federal funding, etc., to then turn around and treat people so poorly, to take people's homes without the correct process. I mean, there is just so much, I think, that is involved in this, that as consumers in a country that has no consumer protection, because I want you guys to remember now, one of the biggest issues that we have in the Cayman Islands, that I agree with you, Dean, we have to blame the government for, is that we have no consumer protection in this country. We live in 2020, folks. Why do we not have basic consumer legislation? Like, I have never understood this. It isn't rocket science here. Why is it that we can operate in an environment where there's not a law that says, okay, if you purchase this, a company cannot deny you the ability to be able to return the item with a receipt. Every store you go in, no returns allowed, exchanges only, or, they have all these like crazy policies that in other places of the world, those types of policies just don't fly. There's some minimum standards for how consumers are treated. In the UK, for example, if you make a big ticket item purchase, like a car or whatever, there's a certain amount of time that you have by which you can actually change your mind about that. You can return it, because people know that sometimes you make a decision, you might go on a car dealership. Here in Cayman, that wouldn't happen because it's not the car dealerships that are financing it for you, like in the US or the UK, whatever. It's like you have to go to the bank, and then it takes weeks to even get approved. So you've had long and hard to think about it. But elsewhere in the world, they get that sometimes you make a big purchase and you need a little bit of time to reflect on the financial risk that you're taking on. And so there are protections in place to make sure that you can have the ability to return something, or change your mind without being penalized. And in this country, we have you purchase something, it doesn't work, it breaks, poor quality, what are you going to do? Nothing. No one's going to protect you. There's no law that says, well, this is what the company has to do. The company has to replace it. The company has to refund your money. None of that. So we all are at the mercy of individual companies doing the right thing. And individual companies don't always do the right thing. And that's why government legislation and oversight is important. Jenna says that there should be something in place that assists with the valuations required by the banks. You have to spend that cash out of pocket before you even know if you're approved or not. Yep. And unfortunately for them, the logic is, well, someone can be asking $1 million for something. That doesn't mean that it's valued $1 million. So we need an evaluation to be able to ascertain what the true market value is of this property. And then, your application is approved in light of that valuation. And there's so many issues with like foreclosures in this country, and how foreclosures are handled, and how they work. I mean, there've been a number of cases where people have been paying the arrears, and unfortunately, what ends up happening is when you start to be in arrears, you're so far down the rabbit hole, but it is impossible to then catch up in most instances. And so it creates, you know, a bit of a financial nightmare, and people end up losing their homes. And you know, the bank, they'll remove you from your house, folks. Don't have any qualms about it. That's what they do. They'll get lawyers to take you to court, and the judge will order a forced eviction, essentially. And they will sell your property for little or nothing. And here's the kicker: regardless of what they sell your property for, you are still on the hook for the balance of your mortgage. And I cannot tell you the number of times that I've seen this happen. And when I tell you, it is some big money. It is, I'm going to give you guys an example of how crazy it can be, right? So there's someone, you know, I read a lot of the court documents because that's what we do, to see, you know, kind of what's going on. So listen to these figures, right? Just to give you guys a reality check. So this particular individual, and I'm not going to call their names, although all of this is a matter of public record, unfortunately, once you've been taken to court by these banks. This individual, the plaintiff accepted an offer for property for CI $280,000, which closed on or around the 16th of June, 2017. At the date of closing, the outstanding balance of the loan was US. Oh, my apologies. So, okay, so here's what happened. The original person purchased the house. I don't have those details, but this is now the reselling of the house. So went into foreclosure, and right. So basically, they sold it for what they could get as a foreclosure. So they got 280,000 US CI dollars, right? So the balance on the loan was $777,018.54, leaving a shortfall of $465,000 in change after the proceeds of the sale was applied. So they applied the $280,000 to the $775,000, leaving a balance of $465,000. And guess what? That was June the 16th of 2017. By July 11th of 2017 and August 21st, they were served 2 demand letters by way of email demanding payment of the $465,000, which is the principal sum, within 7 days of service. So tell me how we understand this logic. You went into foreclosure because you couldn't make a monthly payment of, say it was $2,500. I don't know how much the monthly payment was, right? They sold your house for a shortfall of quite a significant amount. So the house sold for $280,000. And of course, market conditions can affect. If it's a forced sale and people know it's a forced sale, they're going to offer rock bottom prices for it. And the banks will accept that. The banks don't want to sit on your house as a foreclosure for longer than they have to if they have a reasonable offer for sale, because here's why they don't really care to a certain extent. They will still go after you. So they would rather get a chunk of the money, $280,000, towards your mortgage than none at all, basically. And I mean, from a bank's perspective, this makes sense. And then they're still going to go after you for the balance. So in this case, this particular young lady, single mother, has 1 child. I think when she acquired the property, she had a partner that she went into the mortgage with. They are now on the hook for $465,000 US. And where are they going to get this from? So not only are they not going to be able to pay that, definitely not within 7 days, because where do you get $465,000 from? You're going to go take out a loan? No, a bank isn't going to give you money to pay off bad debt. That's not how that works, right? So now this person is owing, I think this is Bank of Butterfield, because they had their mortgage originally at, what was the other bank called? HSBC, right? And then Butterfield bought HSBC's debt. So they bought all the mortgages and stuff like that. And then they started to do proceedings on people. So if you were in arrears, they quickly said, hey, we're going to take your property, we're going to sell it. So this happens all the time. People go into foreclosure, their homes are taken from them, their homes are sold, And because of the amount that was outstanding with the principal, and listen, they charge you everything: principal, lawyer's fees for coming after you, the interest, the this, the that. And when they add it all together, you still owe them a significant amount of money. So unfortunately, not only will this woman never be able to probably pay off this $465,000 unless she somehow, gets a windfall of money. And I'm not quite sure how that's going to happen. But at the end of the day, sadly, that means that, she will not be able to probably ever get a mortgage again either. And this is where I think you've got to be so careful. And there's another case. I mean, this woman, I think, just ran into some fiscal issues because of unemployment and whatever. There was somebody else, another bank, going after her for some additional, like a smaller loan and stuff as well. So, it really is compounded. And that's why when I look at someone like Mr. Brett Hill talking about people living paycheck to paycheck, I reckon that he doesn't understand the real struggles of the average person. LeMay says, for me, that's why life living in the Cayman Islands is so expensive, because all that you have to be paying for and not getting anything back at the end, for example, car insurance, house insurance, and all the insurances, you pay your money every month and every year. And if nothing happens to your car, your house, you're never going to get that sick to use anything much from the insurance, and they stay with all that money. It's not fair. Everyone worked hard for the money, at least if nothing happened. Insurance is a bit of it's like paying into a black hole. You pay it, and the chances of you making a claim are very, very slim. And that's what the insurance companies know, and that's why they make money. And then the one time you do have to make a claim, they're going to give you the runaround on your money. And that's where I have an issue. I get how insurance works. And I get that, I've got to pay that car insurance every single year. But if I go 5 years without a car accident, and I finally have a car accident, even if it's my fault, why is my insurance company giving me a runaround when I have paid you all of this money and tons of other people paid you all of this money and never had to make a claim, never had to collect on it? At least, let people have access to the benefits that they're actually paying for without the poor customer service or the runaround. Aliana says, good morning. One thing which we fail to see is that these people jobs is to BS us. Everyone, every convoluted step placed before us is frustrating and annoying. Nothing is streamlined to make a difference in customer satisfaction. 50 steps to do one thing, but what is one to do because there's no better competition. So you stay with the devil that you know. There's some truth to that. But I think that a lot of industries do have competitors, and there are options that you can be looking at, Aliana. So Fidelity is not the only pension company in the Cayman Islands, and they're certainly not the only bank in the Cayman Islands. So I think that, you can move elsewhere. And Zamira says, good morning. Fidelity sent me an email yesterday stating that they'll make pension payouts by the end of the month, which, by the way, means that they're late. And I kept emailing them about my pension statement, but nothing. And I don't know why it's so difficult to get a pension statement, because it really, really shouldn't be. Anyway, folks, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Speaking of customers, I've got another delivery that I need to be working on this morning. So I'm just looking at the TV over here because I've got to set up a customer and I have got work to do. So I thank you all so much for making it another successful discussion this morning. As Zamira, hopefully they will be in contact with you soon with that statement. I don't know why the statements are taking so long, folks, but they need to get it together. They need to improve their systems, improve their customer service, and deliver on that. So we've got a show this evening at 7 o'clock. Don't forget that there's a pref briefing today at 2 o'clock. So normally pref briefings are Mondays and Fridays. Yesterday's pref briefing, for whatever reason, didn't happen. So it is, or is it normally Tuesdays and Fridays? But anyway, it's today at, today is Tuesday, right? Yes. It is going to be today at 2 o'clock. Starting next week, prep briefings will move to once per week only. We do not know what date is yet. So tonight we can talk about this Sahara dust that's going to be impacting us here. It should be reaching us, I think, by tomorrow, more or less. Already, it looks a little hazy to me. We can talk about some updated COVID information. The numbers continue to spike around the world. The Cayman Islands government is struggling with the idea of when to reopen. So my apologies. So that's another thing that we can discuss as well. And we'll continue to have the discussion. So tune in this evening, 7 o'clock. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful day, and we'll be in touch with you at 7 o'clock this evening. Take care.